Westvale was the kind of neighborhood people dreamed about. White fences. Kids on bikes. Sprinklers hissing on perfect green lawns. You'd never guess something evil lived under all that sunshine. Todd and Jenna Miller moved there in July. Their realtor, Debbie, called it the friendliest place in America. Todd had just landed a new job in finance, and Jenna was 6 months pregnant. They figured Westvale was the perfect place to raise their first child. The house at 223 Lantern Lane had big windows, 3 bedrooms, and a basement that smelled like old dirt. "It's got character," Jenna said. Todd just wanted out of the city. Westvale felt safe, but on their third night, they heard the knocking. It started in the walls, soft, like someone tapping with one knuckle. Jenna thought it was pipes. Todd blamed squirrels. But every night, it got louder. On the 7th night, Todd crawled under the house with a flashlight. The crawlspace was tight, full of cobwebs and broken toys from the last family. He saw a shape in the back corner, a lump under a tarp. He pulled it off and found a wooden mannequin, the kind used for drawing. It was posed like it was begging, arms raised and bent. A note was pinned to its chest. "You heard me." Todd dropped it and scrambled out. He didn't tell Jenna. Jenna met a woman across the street named Carol. Carol was old, maybe 70, with snow-white hair and a long pink robe. Her eyes were pale gray, almost white. Carol held Jenna's belly and whispered, "He won't like the baby." Jenna asked, "Who won't?" Carol smiled. "The one in the walls. He doesn't like change." She backed away and shut the door. Later that day, Todd asked around. Carol had died 6 months ago. On Sunday morning, Todd noticed dark stains on the living room ceiling. At first, it looked like water damage. But when he touched it, his fingers came back red, blood. Or something that looked like it. Jenna said it was paint. Todd called a plumber. The plumber came, checked the pipes, and said everything looked fine. "But I wouldn't stay here," he said as he packed up. "There's something wrong with the silence in this house." That night, the knocking turned into scratching, then a voice, a dry, whispery voice, "You brought it here. You brought the baby." There was a door in the basement that wouldn't open. Painted shut, nailed shut, even caulked at the edges. Todd had tried to ignore it. But now it was rattling. He took a crowbar and ripped it open. Behind the door was a narrow staircase leading down into blackness. The air coming up was cold and thick, like breathing through wet cotton. He went down 3 steps before he heard something breathing down there, not fast, not panicked. Just waiting. He left the door open. That night, Jenna woke up screaming. She said something had touched her stomach in her sleep. It was cold, she sobbed. It said, "Not this one." Todd did what anyone would do. He Googled the house. There wasn't much. A single forum post from 2012, "If you hear tapping at night in Lantern Lane, don't answer. That thing doesn't like being ignored." Then he checked public records. The house had 5 previous owners in 20 years. 3 died inside it. 1 burned to death in the basement. Another hung himself in the living room. 1 vanished with his whole family. Left dinner on the table. Nobody stayed long. By week 3, Jenna was barely sleeping. She said she kept hearing a lullaby, an old, broken-sounding melody. It came from the baby's room, even though they hadn't set it up yet. Todd finally went in. The crib they hadn't built was already there, and in it, something small was lying perfectly still under a baby blanket. When he pulled the blanket back, it was empty. He heard the whisper again. "He's almost here." On the night Jenna went into labor, a thunderstorm hit. The power went out. The phone died. There was no time to get to a hospital. Todd lit candles and boiled water like it was the 1800s, but when the baby came, it didn't cry, it just looked up with pale gray eyes, eyes like Carol's. Jenna screamed. "That's not my baby." From the basement, the door creaked open. Todd turned, and saw the mannequin. It was standing in the hallway, one arm raised, like it was waving hello. The Millers were never seen again. a new couple moved into 223 Lantern Lane 8 months later. They were told the house was abandoned mid-renovation, the crawlspace was empty, but the walls still knock, especially when there's a baby in the house. It started with rain, a cold, steady rain that whispered against the windows of an old diner off Route 77. The neon sign outside flickered, Maddie's Place, in that tired way that suggested it had been doing its job for decades. Inside, the place smelled of burnt coffee and old grease. A jukebox in the corner blinked, silent. Only 4 people were inside when the storm rolled in. There was Maddie, the owner, late 50s, silver hair in a bun, eyes like a storm themselves. She didn't talk much, but she saw everything. Harold, a long-haul trucker, sat in the booth near the window, sipping black coffee and flipping through an old road atlas. He hadn't used GPS since his wife died. At the counter sat Nina, maybe 21, soaked from the rain, hoodie clinging to her. No one asked her why she didn't have a car. No one asked why she kept glancing at the door, and then there was Greg, the local mechanic. Big guy, red flannel, hands like shovels. Always smiling. That night, he wasn't. The rain came harder, like the sky had been holding it in for years. At exactly 9:17 p.m., the lights flickered, and died. The power was out, only the red glow of the emergency sign above the back door gave them any light. Maddie lit a candle and set it on the counter. That's when they heard the knock, 3 soft knocks. Not loud. Almost polite, everyone froze. Maddie gave Harold a look. And he stood slowly, probably just someone needing shelter, he muttered, walking to the glass door. The rain was so heavy they could barely see outside. Then came the second knock, a little louder. Harold reached the door and stopped. His face changed. There's no one there. Greg stood up. Maybe they walked away. Maddie shook her head. No footsteps. Nothing in the mud. They all gathered at the door. Harold opened it, only rain, but on the ground, in front of the door, was a tape recorder. The old kind. Cassette. Black. Wet, but working. Greg bent down and picked it up. He pressed play, the tape crackled. Then a voice, soft. Dry. Familiar, though none of them could say why. This is the first story. The storm is hungry. Do not leave the diner. Or you will be next. Then silence. They gathered at the counter while Greg rewound the tape. Maddie pulled out an old radio and tried the weather. Static, Nina finally spoke. What kind of joke is this? Harold said, we're the only place open for miles. Nobody's playing games. Greg pressed play again, the tape began with soft rain sounds. Then the same voice, rain doesn't always clean things. Sometimes, it brings them back. Like it did in 1973, when they found the boy's body behind this very diner. Maddie dropped her coffee mug. It shattered. What did he say? Nina asked. Maddie's face had gone pale. That boy. I was 16. They found him in the dumpster. They said he drowned, but it hadn't rained for weeks. Greg looked sick. Why didn't you ever tell us? I thought it was over, she said. I thought the rain took him and left. The tape continued, he never left. He just waited for the rain. Right then, the power flickered back on, and all 4 of them screamed, because on the booth window, there was now a small handprint. From the inside, the handprint vanished the moment they looked away. Like fog on glass. They sat in silence until Maddie finally locked the front door. Okay, Harold said, someone's messing with us. Nina stood suddenly. I need the bathroom. She ran into the back. But she didn't come out. 5 minutes passed, then 10, Maddie, Greg said, where's the bathroom back there lead to? She shook her head. Nowhere. Just the bathroom and a back office. No exit. Harold stood. Then where the hell is she? They went together, calling Nina's name. The light above the bathroom flickered. Greg pushed the door open, empty, except for a wet hoodie on the floor. And another tape recorder on the sink. They played the second tape in silence. She came here running from her past. But the rain always remembers. In 2021, Nina watched her friend drown in a ditch by the side of the road. She never told anyone. She thought she was safe. But tonight, she's in the ditch now. Greg muttered, "This isn't possible." But Harold walked outside anyway, into the rain. Maddie tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen. He vanished into the downpour. 5 minutes later, he came back. His eyes were wild. "There's a ditch out back." Greg said, "There's never been a ditch out back." "There is now," Harold whispered. "And Nina's hoodie is floating in it." They tried calling 911, no signal. Greg went for his truck. He never made it. They heard the engine start. Then sputter. Then the sound of the truck doors locking. Greg screamed once, then silence. Maddie and Harold ran out, but the truck was empty. Inside was a third tape recorder, still running. Greg thought his truck would save him. But in 1985, he left his brother to die on that road. The rain was heavy that night, too. He just kept driving. Now it's his turn. Harold shouted, "Who are you?" But the rain only fell harder. Now only Maddie and Harold remained. They sat in the empty diner, surrounded by candlelight and silence. Maddie took out an old photo from under the counter. It was the boy. The one from 1973. He wasn't a stranger, she whispered. "He was my brother." Harold blinked. "You said you were 16, I was. And I let him drown. Because I was scared. He followed me into the freezer. I didn't know he was inside when I locked it. I left him there." The rain became a roar. Harold looked outside and saw figures standing at the edge of the road, children. Wet. Smiling. Waiting. Maddie turned and saw the final tape recorder on the counter, already playing. All stories must end. But some come back. Over and over. Until someone listens. Maddie stood, walked into the rain, and didn't look back. The rain stopped at sunrise. The diner was quiet. Police found it abandoned. No signs of a struggle. Just water everywhere. And 4 tape recorders, each labeled with a name. Nobody ever found Maddie. Or Harold. Or Nina. Or Greg. But every time it rains, if you drive past that stretch of Route 77, you'll see a light in the diner. And if you go in, there's always coffee, always a booth waiting, and sometimes, a tape recorder with your name on it. The end.